Hi, my name is Glaise de France. I'm here with Mark St. Quintin today, and this is Parkinson's too. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about where did you grow up and how was your life with your parents?
Sure. Well, I grew up in Southern Africa. I was born in what was then called Rhodesia and is now known as Zimbabwe, and moved with my parents when I was about 5 or 6 years old to South Africa. First of all, we moved to Cape Town, and then through various circumstances ended up moving to the Eastern Cape province, to a town called Grahamstown. And my father then worked at the university there, not in an academic role, but in an administrative role. And that's basically where I went through most of my schooling, from elementary, high school, and then I did 4 years study at the local university in physics and computer science.
I knew you were a tech guy. Remember? I was like, I knew it. I was like, I so remember that. So how was your youth?
Well, I think very different from what most people here would have experienced, in part because of just the situation in South Africa at the time. The whole system was really governed by the National Party's policy of apartheid. So as a white youth, you really had a very privileged environment that you lived in, and there was many areas where there were really terrible inequalities in terms of what services and standards of living were available to white and black people. And although at the time, I suppose as a youngster, you just kind of lived through it, over time I think I did build an appreciation that there was something kind of fundamentally amiss with this, something that was fundamentally wrong. And that, I think, ultimately was one of the drivers behind leaving South Africa, because I just felt ill at ease with that. Not to mention, the prospect that at the time that we left, that the transition from essentially a white minority governed environment to a black majority governed environment was expected to be much more violent and bloody than it turned out to be. So I think that also had quite a significant impact on our decision to leave South Africa.
How old were you when you left South Africa?
I was 27, 28.
And you came to Canada?
We came to Canada, first of all to Calgary. I worked at the University of Calgary in a spin-off company, software company that spun out of their computer services department. And from there eventually moved into more the telecom area, which is really where I worked until I finished working about 3 years ago. Well, I didn't really notice it myself at first. It was my wife that first noticed that when I was walking, I wasn't swinging my left arm at all or naturally. So she observed that and just basically asked me, why wasn't I swinging my arm? And I said, well, I don't know, I wasn't aware that I was not. And around the same time, or a little bit after, I did start noticing some problems with my hands, particularly if I was trying to do typing on the keyboard. My fingers would get very stiff, my hands would feel cold all the time. And there was also some tingling I started to feel in my feet around that time. So with a few things like that going on, we felt, well, just go and see the family doctor. And From there I was referred to a neurologist, and that eventually led to the conclusion that I had Parkinson's.
Which kind of treatments did...
Well, I mean, the treatment for Parkinson's really depends upon, to me, kind of two main aspects. One is medication-based, and there's a wide range of different drugs that are used on patients at different stages of their progression. And then the other form of treatment really is based around exercise, because it's widely accepted that really the only way to materially slow the progression of Parkinson's is through exercise. So to me, those are the two kind of cornerstones. It's medication-based, and secondly, exercise. There are some surgical interventions that are used as well, and those generally would be used in the more advanced stage.
How was your reaction after you got your diagnosis?
Well, I think I was surprised at first. I didn't really know what to think. And I did a little bit of reading about, what Parkinson's was really about, because at the time I had heard about Parkinson's as a disease generally that older people would have, and I suppose I knew in general that it affected one's mobility. But as I started reading about it, I discovered that it has many, many other symptoms that are not necessarily strictly motor skills related. Mm-hmm. And as I kind of read into all these different things that go wrong at different times with different people, I think I just kind of stepped back for it and said, it seems like there's no predictive way of saying which patients are going to eventually develop which symptoms. So rather than spending the next 5-10 years of my life worrying about what I might develop, I'm just going to basically try and continue life as normally as I can. And that very much was the philosophy with myself and Sally, that we should live life normally and as best as we could under the circumstances, and at such time as various things started to become an issue, then we would deal with them as they arose. So unless I have some kind of intervention with one of the kind of surgeries that I spoke about, I don't see myself traveling long distance by air anymore. Basically, there's just aspects of the stiffness that I sometimes get and the impact that it also has on other bodily functions that just, I can't imagine how one would really deal with them in an airport or sitting in a little box seat on an aircraft. So for me, long distance plane travel is kind of out of the question now. We tried going on a cruise last summer, and that wasn't too bad actually. I mean, once one's on the ship and you've kind of got your room or your suite or whatever, if I'm not feeling great, well, I can just go there as much as I can go and sit in a room here and be quiet and just kind of work my way through it. So that's a possibility, but there's just not that many places you can go to from Vancouver. You can go up to Alaska and Hawaii and then get back without having to go on an airplane is the other thing.
So you can go to Hawaii from Vancouver?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Twice a year there's Holland America have it's about a 10-12 day cruise.
That's nice.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yeah. How is driving for you?
Well, I made the decision myself about probably 2 years ago now to stop driving altogether. I certainly could when I'm properly medicated, but the problem is if I'm out driving and then I suddenly start seizing up and I'm on the highway, or whatever condition the road is in, it requires real concentration and the ability to respond properly. It's just not worth the risk. So, as I say, about 2 years ago, just basically we decided, okay, I should stop driving, and Sally has become my way of getting around.
Do you take the bus?
It actually goes just from right outside our apartment here. I haven't really done that, somewhat for the same kind of reasons, that if I do suddenly get into an episode, as I call them, where the medication stops working, it's kind of difficult to imagine how I would deal with that when you have to basically stretch out and lie flat and things like this.
Right.
It's not an easy thing to do on a city bus.
Yeah. Do you think Vancouver, somewhat North Vancouver, at least this area where you live, is friendly for your mobility, or do you find any somewhat challenging?
Well, really what's happened is that I've become based out of the home here. So I only really now go out when I have to. If I need to go to the dentist, for example, I can't do a WebEx or Zoom session with the dentist. To go to the dentist, you've got to go to the dentist. So other than things like that, really, this is where I spend my time, and part of the reason why we moved to this particular apartment was because it was an area that we really liked very much, and there is Kate's Park right on our doorstep, so I can get out there and walk if I need to. So this really has become my kind of environment now.
It's beautiful here.
It is to me, we were just so lucky, and every time I kind of sit here and look out the window and think how fortunate we were to move in here. It's where I'm happy, so that's what counts.
Yeah.
Well, stiffness in my limbs is the primary one, and then difficulties with constipation is right up there as well. It's probably actually the most severe, and they're somehow intertwined with each other. And this is part of, I think, the brain gets confused as to what signals it's getting, and it can just send me completely into a state of being absolutely frozen rigid, and also, as I say, very uncomfortable in terms of the bowel and bowel movements. So I think 2 is probably enough. Dealing with those 2 is a big challenge some days. Well, I think, I've just learned to appreciate the things that I really enjoy in life. And, I've got a place that I live in that I wouldn't really want to move anywhere else, be it this specific apartment or this part of Vancouver or living in Canada. To me, it really gets no better than that. So, as I say, I feel exceptionally fortunate to be in that position. And I think, Parkinson's has given me a more acute appreciation of how very fortunate I am in many respects to be living where I am, to have my family nearby. what else can you really ask for? So, as I say, I think that heightened appreciation of the things that I should really be thankful for is the one kind of good aspect of it.
And Sally, she's lovely. I love her. I don't know her for too long, but she's so sweet. Do you have family history of Parkinson's?
No, not at all.
No.
No. I'm quite sure, in terms of, my own parents and their siblings, that there's no instance of Parkinson's amongst any of them. So it kind of came as a surprise, I suppose. Well, my diet has certainly changed since we knew that I had Parkinson's, and it's changed incrementally over time. But now pretty much I eat a vegetarian diet. We will have fish and more occasionally beef or lamb, but that's probably once a month kind of thing, because there does seem to be a correlation between the ability for the gut to absorb the medication and animal protein. So, as I say, for the most part now, basically I avoid animal protein, things like cheese. So I've actually really come to appreciate some really good vegetarian meals. It's kind of surprising. 5 years ago, I probably generally thought that vegetarian meals were kind of boring, but one can actually have some meals that are just as tasty as anything with beef or chicken as a vegetarian meal. And then the other thing that, again, I wasn't basically told to do it by the doctor or anything, but it was apparent that alcohol and the mix of the medications probably was a thing to avoid. So I basically have given up beer, wine, scotch. That's kind of it.
How about coffee?
Coffee seems to be fine, as far as I know, and I drink plenty of it, so hopefully there is no new research that comes out that says Parkinson's people should avoid coffee, because that's the one thing I still enjoy coffee, so hopefully I can continue that.
What is your average diet in a day? What do you eat in a day, let's say?
Well, breakfast is actually pretty much what I've been eating for the last 30 plus years. Basically it's muesli, yogurt, and then either a bagel or a slice of toast and coffee. So that's pretty much been my breakfast, as I say, ever since as far back as I can remember. And then for lunch we do a variety of things, or Sally really does most of the food preparation now. So that'll be bean salad or soup. Sometimes, more so in the winter, she'll make vegetable soup or something. So again, pretty simple meals at lunchtime, and fruit as well at both breakfast and at lunch. And then dinner, in a way it's kind of similar to what we have at lunch. It's probably just a bit more, and more things that are actually cooked in the evening rather than, say, the leftovers that we'll have cold from the previous day often at lunch.
Do you take any supplements?
Well, that's a little bit of an on and off thing at the moment. So in trying to really discover exactly, what is the best way forward to get the bowels to settle down, I have tried various supplements or laxative products to see which ones seem to work best for me, and that's still really an experimental thing, and it seems difficult to find doctors that really, I think, can give good guidance on that. I think it's a difficult thing to deal with anyway, and as I say, it seems like at the moment we're just doing it a little bit, kind of feeling our way in the dark.
I heard probiotics are pretty good for the bowel health.
Yeah, I mean, and that's part of the reason why I have the yogurt and things like that, because that helps.
Yeah.
But I don't know, to me it's just a difficult thing to really figure out what's working and what doesn't.
Right.
Because they're not things where you necessarily get an immediate response.
Right.
You may have to try something for 2 weeks to really allow your gut to kind of reset into a different regime. And, that makes it difficult to figure out, well, has it worked or has it not? Because there are lots of other things that day by day change, and you're really trying to kind of find putting it sort of in scientific terms, a low amplitude signal with a lot of noise. There are lots of other things happening in terms of what you eat that cause different things to happen, and you're trying to discern out of all that variation something that may actually only change very slightly over the course of 2 weeks. So spotting that amongst all these other things that are distracting you can be tricky.
Yeah.
No, it's my weight's remained more or less steady, and I think that's in part because I've continued the workout as best as I can. In the last 6 months to a year, keeping up the level of workout has become progressively more difficult. I've probably lost muscle mass and picked up some non-muscle fat in terms of my weight. But my weight has been pretty steady over the last 5 to 10 years.
What do you miss the most that you used to do it and you can no longer do it?
Well, I think just the freedom to be able to get up and go outside for a bike ride or go for a walk, wherever you feel like. So, I mean, nowadays I find walking more than a couple of 100 meters. I get a lot of tension and pain down the left side of the leg, radiating out of the knee. So even with the walker that I have, I still get that same difficulty. So, for sure, just the ability to be able to say, well, let's just go for a walk. It's a lovely evening. Very often I'll only get 100 meters and I'll just say, no, there's no point in going any further. I'm just going to regret it when I get back home. So, we'll just sit and chat for a little bit. But that for sure is the thing that I find that I would miss most. Well, the objective is to do it 6 times a week. That was pretty much what my regime was before. Work out 6 days a week, have 1 day off, just for recuperation. And even on sort of an off day, very often I'd go for a walk with Sally as well. So in some ways I was doing it 7 days a week. That again would be the goal now, to do 6 decent workouts a week. Some weeks it probably works out 3 or 4. Other weeks maybe only 1 or 2. And that is a big frustration of mine, because I know every week kind of counts in terms of keeping up that level and using exercise as a way to prevent the progression of the disease.
Do you enjoy exercising?
I do, and again, that's something else that I miss, because when things were going well, if I could really push myself in a workout and feel a little bit exhausted at the end, that was a good feeling. I really enjoyed that. I suppose there's both just the accomplishment side of it, and then I don't know exactly the chemicals that your body releases at that time, whether it's adrenaline or whatever. But there's definitely a bit of a physical high that you get as a result of working out at a high level for 45 minutes to an hour or something.
Right. And do you do any other kind of workout besides working out at the gym?
That's pretty much it, because I suppose I could cycle, but on the road now I'm not sure that I really would want to do that. So it's pretty much all gym based. I mean, I have a little bit of equipment here in the apartment, but there is a good, well-equipped gym within the condos here, so I can go there and get a good workout if I choose. People who are newly diagnosed, I think kind of my message to them is, if there's one thing that you need to prepare yourself for, it is for the unknown, because it seems like everybody has their own quirks and idiosyncrasies in how the disease displays itself, and I don't think anybody can really predict which path you're going to take. And while you need to maintain optimism, don't expect there's going to be an immediate breakthrough that's going to provide a cure. And if you're not exercising, start now.
What do you do for fun?
Well, most of the time that I have spare time for, I play with Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's sort of the ideal toy, for want of a better word, for somebody who's got a little bit of a technical bent. I've also been interested in aviation pretty much as long as I can remember. My oldest brother was an airline pilot. My one uncle was a pilot in the Second World War. My dad flew for a while. So it's kind of in the family. I never pursued a career in aviation, but have always been interested in aircraft and that sort of thing. And, as I say, having kind of a bit of a technical bent anyway, Microsoft Flight Simulator provides an incredible wealth of opportunities for technical learning. And I think that's important with Parkinson's as well, that there's no shortage of challenges there. You can either just enjoy it as a game, or you can get into developing your own assets that become part of the game itself, or you can create movies using the footage that you shoot in the simulator. So there's really no boundaries to the way that you can use it to amuse yourself, and I'm just scratching the surface at the moment still. I feel there's just so many things that I want to try, and just never seem to have the time to get to them.
Wow, you're busy. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Very nice to see you again.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you.